Hey everyone, this is Curb and I bring you another standard match. Today we do have another game featuring Avantgarda on the left. This is going to be my deck, as you can clearly see by those sleeves, but this time I'm not going to be piloting Avantgarda. Instead it's going to be piloted by my teammate Joshua. This is his first time actually playing the deck. We had a tournament and he decided to play the deck for the entire tournament, and we'll see how well he did throughout it. So he is going to be going up against Bastion. We did see last time Avantgarda went up against Bastion. It didn't really end too well for me playing Avantgarda. I did kind of get high rolled out of the game. So let's see if Avantgarda can do the quick run back. Of course, this is a different player, but you know, we'll see how Avantgarda deals with the Bastion matchup. So we do see the typical Bastion ride line using the grade 1's, I think it's Rook's skill, to reveal that grade 3, which does count as 2 grade 3s, and actually getting a good call off the top for once, which is definitely not something that tends to happen to Bastion players. Usually call a PG or a trigger, but in this case it worked out. Something I've actually seen another player play is the grade 1 from the Graham Grace line, where when it's rode upon, you draw 1, discard 1, which does also proc Spiral Cutie Angel, which is definitely interesting. And speaking of cycle cards, we do see the Habitable Zone discard here to ride into the grade 2. Apologies if Joshua takes a long time to figure things out. And like I said, this is the first time playing the deck. It looks like we are going to be using the Habitable Zone, almost forgetting to... I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to shuffle for some reason and then draw. But we do need to put it on the bottom of the deck and then draw a card. And then looks like we actually drew into the grade 1 order card. So we're just going to be shuffling up the deck because there's nothing for us to search. Something I did actually realize that makes a lot of sense. I think that someone commented on one of my previous videos. If you don't search with the grade 1 skill, even if you Soul Blast it off of the Habitable Zone skill, I think you can actually call it for free. So we could have actually gotten just a free grade 1 there for no cost, because if you do actually look at how their skills are worded, it doesn't necessarily say that they need to be called from the soul. So as long as their skill procs as they're written over is the condition, I believe you can still call them no matter where they're at. I would need to double check that, but just from a cursory reading it seems like it should work. But surely everyone can give me a quick update in the comments if that is correct, because if it is, that's pretty cool. Anyways, we do see the grade 3 Bastion being ridden and then calling down the Alden, counterblasting the 2 in order to call out the grade 3. Going to be that Grandeur Edge Dragon, which is a perfectly fine play since we are going first, and obviously we can't use the Bastion's drive check skills in order to actually, you know, get the drive checks, because our opponent does have to be at grade 3. Unfortunately, that other grade 3 doesn't have boost, because in order to get boost, you do actually have to Persona Ride. So it looks like the Alden is going to be swinging in for a 23. We're thinking about whether we want to guard that with the 15, but it looks like we are just going to opt to take it, not hitting into a defensive. The Bastion swinging in for the 13, guarding for a 2 to pass. Looks like we're going to get a PG and another copy of that grade 3. The Bastion is going to be restanding the Alden, who's getting another 5k off his skill, hitting that 28, making it very difficult to guard. Meaning that this other one is also going to be a 28, but it looks like we do have double front triggers to actually kind of bounce that attack away. So I guess it makes sense why we decided to guard like that. If we had managed to get a defensive trigger there, that would have made things that much easier actually to guard. And we might have even conserved a little bit of shield value, which is definitely a very nice plus. Using the Habitable Zone skill here once again, and then of course we did see the grade 2 order come out during the last turn, so since I only play 1 copy of each, there is nothing left to search, and we are just going to be shuffling up. And then since the grade 2 is actually worded the same as the grade 1, I believe that if what that commenter told me was true, we should actually be able to get a free grade 1, or grade 2 here, which could definitely be a little bit of a game changer in playing this deck. I mean, it doesn't come up often, I'll admit. You don't really draw into your orders that often. Joshua is just terrible at shuffling, and that's why he wasn't able, or that's why he ended up, you know, drawing into both the cards that you want to search out. But anyways, we are using the Avantgarda skill here, putting the dusting into the soul in order to draw the card, and then calling out the lady, who I still refuse to call her name by whatever she is. It's like there it is, Dargente. I think that's like German or something, but I'm not going to pronounce it. Anyways, using it to Soul Blast out the dusting, and then searching the deck, probably going to be adding a Deathwind. For some reason, trying to activate the Kill Shroud even though it honestly doesn't matter. You're going to have 1 order per turn. Assuming you have a Habitable Zone, you can do 2 orders per turn. But of course, you know, whether you play the Kill Shroud now or next turn, it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, I think we ended up drawing it for the grade 2 turn, so we didn't even have like a chance to play it. So, you know, I don't think we had a chance to play it when last turn. So if we drew into this turn, that's really unfortunate. If you start off with a Kill Shroud, it's like whatever, you can still play it from hand. But, you know, if you get things like out of order, it doesn't really matter. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm kind of just rambling. Anyway, my point is, Kill Shroud is an unimportant card. You almost never use it. And, yeah, it's just kind of there to be there. Kill Shroud is honestly just your emergency panic button if you do need to activate your Avantgarda and you just need any order, and for whatever reason the game's going very poorly for you and you aren't able to get your cycle of order cards continuous with the Lady and Habitable Zone. So, like I said, Kill Shroud is just a desperation move. Alright, so finally getting everything all set up. Going to be playing the Death Winds from hand. Going to be swinging at the Vanguard for just 28. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get that halfway, which is something I definitely like to do on our first grade 3 turn. It just makes your Vanguard hit that much harder, especially since you do need to hit this attack in order to actually restand. But 28 is still definitely a respectable number in its own right, and definitely kind of difficult to guard. We do see 2 PGs in the Bastion player's hands, and it looks like we are going to be proccing one of them here to just kind of deny that restand, which makes sense because it prevents that Lady from going up to 20. She's just going to be standing at 15. The Bastion does give a continuous plus 5k to the rear guards, so both of these rear guards are 18, so the Lady will not be able to attack into it. And it looks like we are going to opt to just go ahead and pass and not give the Bastion player any CB, which is definitely the correct play here. I actually did it in my last play, my last game, where I damage denied the Bastion, but this is a much better situation because he was at 0, and that's why I damage denied him, but Bastion is at 2. The big issue with the Alden, since we don't have the countercharger promo, is that you get into situations like this where you can be easily damage denied. So even though we do have pretty strong rear guards here, Alden is nothing to sneeze at, and that grade 3 is a big powerhouse. So honestly, it's not the worst situation, but you do lose out on the extra pressure from the 4 drive checks, not to mention, you know, the extra cards you get from that drive checks. So we are going to be using the, what's her name, Rodalia, in order to put her to soul, give the grade 3 boost. Looks like the Alden's going to be swinging at the Lady. Definitely a very good play, because that Lady is just a really annoying card and definitely one of Avantgarda's most important cards in the deck. Going to be swinging for 41, hitting into a heal trigger that is going to be proccing. So definitely not good for Bastion. Swinging the 13 at the 23k Vanguard. Looks like we're going to go a 1 to pass, and we're not going to be hitting it. We do see a Bastion in the Rodalia, using the Bastion skill to stand the grade 3. That grade 3 also is pretty good in this situation because it's going to be standing itself as soon as the thing in front of it stands. And since it does have boost for this turn, you know, it is just going to be a second 41k attack. This is a 21k block. We did already give up 2 of our 3 front triggers, so this is going to be a 2-card guard regardless. So we're probably just thinking, do we want to go to 3 here, or do we want to stave off this attack? And it looks like we are going to be going for the staving off, discarding the Kill Shroud in order to PG it. Personally, I don't think I would have gone for that. I probably would have just gone to 3, but it doesn't really matter that much. It means that you have better survivability in the later turns, but, you know, because you don't really need that much CB. Once you have Hathaway, you have like infinite countercharge. Bastion doesn't have any retire, so you're in a really good position. Unfortunately, we did lose out on that Lady, so we'll have to see if we can get some more, as we do use the Avantgarda skill to draw a card. I do see that we actually have Habitable Zone in the hand. In my opinion, that was a little bit of a mistake in sequencing. We probably should have called out the Habitable Zone, search out the replenishment dock, and then use the Avantgarda skill to put into soul, because you know, obviously that we want to deck them before we start drawing. But we do almost make a misplay there with calling the Hathaway before the Habitable Zone. But now we are finally going to be calling the Habitable Zone, searching out the replenishment dock, and now the next order we play is for free, and we can play a total of 2 orders this turn. So probably going to just be playing that replenishment dock. That Habitable Zone is going to be a booster. Honestly, just that package is so good in almost any Bront deck, or any Bront gate deck that plays orders, which is most of them, unless you're Messiah and you're terrible. But of course we do the Habitable Zone. We're basically just going to be drawing cards infinitely, playing the Refurbishment Dock? Always thought it was Refurbishment Dock or Replenishment Dock, whatever. Using its skill to draw another card. Looks like we draw to another Habitable Zone, calling out the Hathaway, using its skill to counterblast 1, and then draw a card. So basically, like I said during Avantgarda week, this is really one of the strengths of Avantgarda, that every single card just replaces itself. You call the Hathaway, you get another card. You call the Lady, you get another card. So you're never really running low on any like advantage, as we see the double Lady, which is definitely where you want to be in this situation, adding back both orders, the Kill Shroud and the Dusting. Going to be playing the Dusting for our second order for the turn, so definitely we are still in, not, it would be great if we had that Kill Shroud set up, but unfortunately no, the game goes the way it is, but we're perfectly fine. Avantgarda is a deck that can definitely just play each turn as is and then get to its strategy just by doing what it does. So we've got really big columns here. I believe those Laders are going to be swinging for, with the Death Winds, their own skill, they're getting a total of 30k, so they're going to be 40k base, and then with the Grade 2 boosters, that's going to be a total of 50k on each column by the end of the Vanguard's attacks. Then of course that's not even accounting for any triggers that we get. So if we get any critical triggers here, we have a very good chance of just like smacking the opponent and pushing them to either like 4 or 5, as we do see a really big swing here. What is that, like 28, 30, 43 or something like that, with the Hathaway boost. Unfortunately, we do have to boost with the Hathaway for the first attack, which is not something you always want to do. I always like to try and keep it for the second attack, just to have the more pressure, which is, I guess, one advantage to going to 3 instead of using that PG last turn. We would have been able to just swing unboosted and then save the Hathaway for the second attack. Just because the second attack only has 1 drive check, so it's just a little bit less threatening. And of course, like me and Joshua always say, you want to be saving your strongest attacks for last. We do see a heal trigger coming off. Thanks to the fact that Bastion is still at 2, we are actually going to be able to proc that heal and heal down to 1, so a very good situation. And then the second check is going to be revealing a critical trigger, and looks like we're obviously going to be giving the critical to the Vanguard, so meaning that this next Bastion swing is going to be a lethal one. And I believe we did also give the trigger power to Avantgarda, which is definitely well needed. Well, not needed, but it's going to definitely help. It kind of just forces the PG out of your opponent or a lot of cards from hand. Either way, you're still getting at least 2 cards, because we're swinging for 48, and the opponent absolutely has to guard this attack, because now with the critical, it is a lethal attack. But the one disadvantage, I guess, of that is that, those ladies are stuck at 4,000 instead of 5,000 instead of 6,000, which is, big shame. It's so sad we can't get to that 6,000 power. Deeply unfortunate. Anyways, we do see another Persona Ride drive checked off of that final check, which is definitely pretty good. You do need to obviously keep your line of Persona Rides in order to make the deck function, but with all the draw and search power and deck thinning, it's honestly not as difficult as you would initially think. But the first layer is going to be swinging for 50k at the Vanguard. Looks like we're going to decide, since we can't kill this turn, we're just going to opt to take out that really annoying rear guard, since it is at 28, 6,000. Even though it is a 28k rear guard, I don't think we're going to be able to, guard that very effectively. But it turns out it's not even going to matter, as we're going to Persona Ride and call another one down. So Bastion has basically just been playing with this exact same board the entire game, and it's been doing all right, I guess. I don't know if the opponent being at 1 damage and you at 4 is what you would call like the best situation, but at the same time, we're looking at a very strong turn here. Probably going to be restanding the other column because of the grade 3. We're under Persona Ride, so it does have boost. The Alden's going to be swinging for that 33, which is definitely a really good number. Even a front trigger does not guard it all by itself. That would be a lot more threatening if we weren't at 1 damage. So we do have a lot of leeway. And of course, we do actually need to be taking some damage because we want to be getting to a point where we can use our counterblast, as this other column swinging for 51. We do hit into a defensive trigger there, so that's going to make guarding things just a little bit easier. This 51 is still a very strong attack, probably not worth the guard unless you're going to PG it, but this is just the second attack, and we've got 2 more, both with drive checks, and I think we kind of just want to save the PGs for that, so it's probably best to just take this really strong attack. That is what, a 30k guard, but I'm not going to get a defensive trigger there. The Bastion is going to swing for 23. Honestly, we could throw down a 15k here and just make it a 2 to pass. A little bit risky because I guess if Bastion does hit the double crit, we do just lose there, but it looks like we are going to be throwing down the 15, drive check into a cat, and a critical trigger, which is definitely making things very concerning, because this is now a 61k golem with 2 drive checks. And unfortunately, since we did use that PG last turn, this is not going to be that easy of a guard. We have the potential of going all the way up to 81. So if we want to no pass, we have to guard that much in order to get there. Thankfully, we do have the defensive trigger, so it's not as unfeasible as you might initially think. So it looks like we're going to be throwing down a total of, let's see, that's 30 plus 20, 50k shield. So that is 73k shield right now. That is currently a 2 to pass since we are at the 61. So if both of these our checks are triggers, that will go through, and that is actually lethal because of that critical trigger. So definitely, you know, a little bit risky, but at the same time, you know, the chances of your opponent hitting a double trigger are not that high. I say this even though during this tourney I literally lost to Bastion drive checking 4 criticals in a row, but you know, that's Vanguard. You can't really say anything about that. So there is, I think, the option to no pass this with an intercept of another 5k, but you know, I guess we just have to kind of decide whether we want to risk it for the biscuit, I guess. But you really don't want to be intercepting with a lady because she is super strong attacker. As we saw, she was literally 50k. But looks like we are going to be committing the extra 10k guard in order to make it an OT to pass. And turns out it was all for naught because we just saw 2 drive checks, a cat, and then another Bastion. So next turn we're looking at probably another Persona ride. But of course, Avantgarda does have that Persona ride that we drove check last turn. Looking like it might not be the strongest of turns. I don't think we have another card to call to that habitable zone card column, as we do just use the Avantgarde skill to put the dusting into the soul. And if we actually take a look at the Bastion player's hands, I believe we can see an Elementaria. We do actually see Joshua kind of debating whether he wants to kill Shroud here, which personally I think is a terrible idea because, you know, literally there's one target for the kill Shroud. You only get 5k, and you get nothing else other than a retire. But I think in the end, Joshua is going to make the correct play and just put the dusting in the soul. There we go. That is correct. And then, like I was saying, if we look at the Bastion player's hands, we do actually see an Elementaria. So the dusting is actually the correct play here. Now, of course, Bastion doesn't give intercept to any of these grade 3s, and they don't naturally have it. But the dusting will prevent any blitz orders from being activated this turn, meaning that that Elementaria is completely shut down. And in all honesty, Joshua should have known there are 2 PGs in the drop zone, meaning that there's 2 possible PGs still left. One of them was drove check-in. So, you know, the last PG is obviously going to be the Elementaria because people are still playing it. So if he had checked the drop zone, that it would have been obvious that dusting is the correct play. But we are going to be swinging here. Bastion in definitely a scary situation because this is a crit to win it. This lady is going to be another 50k column. We thankfully do have 1 PG, but depending on how much shield value we have left in our hand is really going to determine whether we can actually guard anything. I think we do actually have 2 cats, which are 2 20k shields apiece. And of course, we do actually have all of the ride deck in the soul still, except for one that I think we soul blasted for the Alden. So, yeah. Alright, so it looks like we're finally going to be guarding with a 30 and a 20k shield for a total of 50. That's going to be a 63, which I believe is going to be an OT to pass. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happened. pass.
No pass?
Oh wait, this really is just a title.
OT.
Gen 1.
OT. OT.
See, you should have no-guarded it. It would have been funnier.
And that OT is going to take the game for Avantgarda. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.